We're here to talk about dyslexia and sport with Jared Blank.
Yes, thank you, Shelby. We're going to be going through the considerations and opportunities for resiliency in sport and educational arenas.
So Jared, kind of tell us about your background and how you got involved in all of this?
Yeah, so I'm with the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch. I'm our vice president. I have a master's in business administration as well as communication management. I've been involved in various training programs, getting my personal training certification, as well as my run coaching certification through USATF, as well as the Roadrunners Club of America. And then through that, I also obtained some certificates along the way, became a behavior change specialist through ACE, and got my level 2 sports science through USATF.
And so with all these certifications, what keeps you motivated and keep searching and keep just achieving all these great things?
Well, I think I love to learn. I have a passion for learning, but it hasn't always been an easy road for me in learning. And as I was going through my educational process, when I got the opportunity to learn more about sport and sport education, it just kind of fueled that passion for me. So I thought it would be cool to explore that and explore how I could maybe combine the two of dyslexia and sport together.
So we have a lot of students who sports is kind of like their life-saving thing. They're just it just makes everything worth it for them to put all this hard work on. Maybe talk a little bit about the dyslexic student and why sports might be so important to them.
Yeah, Shelby. So we'll definitely go through the dyslexic student and why sport is important to them, the role movement plays, how students with dyslexia might be impacted by sports, both on a positive as well as maybe some of the challenges, and the importance of access to sports for these students, for the specific population, and then we'll bring it all together.
Perfect.
So showed that, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say the simulation here is really important to people that don't really understand dyslexia. Want to talk about it.
And I'd like to point out that there isn't science behind this slide, but it is how I read, at least how difficult it was for me to read when I was younger, and the challenges that reading and writing were for me in the classroom. And so I get into that to show, like, okay, that might have been an area of challenge for me, of like reading or like looking at directions. And I remember specifically like being in the classroom and not understanding what I was supposed to be doing because the processing of information off the page wasn't very natural for me. So that was definitely a challenge. And I remember meeting with the specialist as I was being diagnosed with dyslexia. I was diagnosed at the young age of 5. And that specialist told me that school is going to be like running with a cut on the bottom of your foot. It's going to be really challenging and painful at times, but you need to know you can do it. So there's a level of perseverance, I think, that came with dyslexia and learning challenges for me.
So when you were in school, we now know 1 in 5 students have a learning difference called dyslexia. But for you, did you think that anybody else, were you kind of all alone?
Kind of all alone in my journey, because no one was really talking about it. It wasn't really something that my parents knew about it. They had to learn along the way. We joked that they put a game plan together with a rubber band and a shoestring to kind of get me up to speed with the school, schooling and learning to read and that process. So you kind of felt alone. And I think it's really cool because we have this campaign through the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch, which is Dyslexia, Are You Not Alone? And our student panel actually came up with that as a way to connect with other students.
So how did you talk about finding my why? So you want to explain that to us?
Yeah, so I will get into that. Finding my why was really I learned at a young age that movement was really important to me, like being able to put on my tennis shoes and go run out the door. And at the time, it might have just been a few laps around the neighborhood, but that would really allow me to deal with the frustration of school and life at the time. And now we know through research that there's actually science behind this, and that even just running 1 or 2 miles can improve attention span and concentration, the overall mood of a person. And that was definitely true in my case. And so I think with students that are going through learning challenges or dyslexia, or maybe even anything, this movement piece can be really important. And just exercise, um, relieving or reducing anxiety and depression, and then elevating our moods and cognitive function and that ability. And that made a lot of sense to me too, because I remember there'd be challenges where I couldn't figure out a math problem, or I couldn't figure out the sentence that I was trying to do. And then I'd go for this run and I'd be able to come back and actually engage more with the material. So that was really important for me.
And then, a lot of our students, the anxiety and depression and negative mood is just an everyday thing, because they're so swallowed kind of in their weaknesses
Yeah,
that I don't think we understand as much. Like, we really need our kids to be out there participating and getting this activity.
I think so, right? I always, we talk to a lot of parents or even students themselves is like, well, what can I be doing? And it is really like we have to think about it. They're in the most challenging environment when they're sitting in the classroom and trying to go through those fundamentals. Like that is not a point of their strength. And so really finding that passion of theirs, hopefully the passion and strength kind of align, because that's where you get that sweet spot of a win. But really finding the things that they like to do, and where they can be creative, whether that's through sport or it can be really art, music, cooking. It can be a number of things, but really finding that. And I do think there is a movement element to the whole process. And Shelby, I was fortunate to have a career where I worked in college athletics for 12 years. And once I came to join the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch, and learning about some of these challenges that students might have, it really got me thinking about like what it might be like if you have an athlete who has difficulty reading a playbook or reading off a whiteboard and trying to learn those things, and what coaches might be able to do in order to bring that athlete and have them participate. um, and maybe walking through the play is a better way for them. Maybe the player is an auditory learner, so just like hearing the coach talk about the play while they're like looking at the whiteboard or looking at the playbook, that could be a way to do it. And then just even basic fundamentals. Somebody might not understand how to watch film in a way that's productive, so like a coach actually explaining the fundamentals of what they should be looking for when they're watching film, so that time can be efficient. I think one of my concerns with like a student that might have dyslexia or a learning challenge is that they could get written off because they're not a neurotypical student. So maybe just looking at the whiteboard or reading the playbook isn't going to be enough for them, but they might be talented enough to be on the field, just need to learn it a different way.
We talked about, we've had several students in the past, when they're playing a sport, left to right sometimes is really hard when you have dyslexia. And coaches really need to understand that, like, how important that is. I mean, we have students talk about they put an R and an L on their hands, or they just these ways around things. But a lot of times I notice that coaches don't really understand dyslexia. So we talk to the teacher, we talk to the parents, we talk to the tutors, but it's so important for the coach. So the student needs to really share that with their coach.
Yeah, and I think it's a hard thing for students, because we know that there's such shame that comes with dyslexia and learning challenges, unfortunately. Like the more we talk about it, the more we can kind of dive into that stigma. But for coaches, these athletes can see the bigger picture. They can persevere, they can push themselves through a ton of stuff. So like working on some basic fundamentals of understanding that a student might not get right and left right away, playing ways to, like, whether it's coloring the shoes or doing, coming up with a tactic that gets these students on the field so that they can be successful for themselves as individuals, but also contribute collectively to what a coach is trying to achieve in their team.
Because I know a lot of these students are actually gifted in sports and really are the star players. There's just these little workarounds, and we worry about them getting set aside too early
That, uh,
before their potential.
definitely a concern. But even I remember talking to members of our student panel where we have one student who's so laser focused that they can, really hone in on their craft of what needs to be accomplished. I would hate to see something where that student does get written off early because maybe not learning in the neurotypical way to be on the field or to be in the arena would hurt their chances.
Yeah.
The other thing that we talk about, or that I'd like to talk about, is I have these 4 things that I really think would bring more equity to our education system. If we can provide science-based reading programs K through 3rd grade, we know that will help eliminate a lot of the challenges or the self-esteem issues that these students have as they go on in their education. So that's a big component or a big thing that I try to push, as well as assistive technology, using Grammarly or an app or a reading device. Those are all things that I believe every student should have access to, but we know that they will have a really big impact on the 10 to 20% that is dealing with dyslexia or a learning challenge. So that could be a thing. And then we always talk about dyslexia as a time disability. So having extra time on a test or an assignment, these students want to do well. And sometimes if we can just give them a little bit more time, then they'll be able to show the results that we're all trying to achieve. And I actually think if we open the doors and let all students have extra time, I equate it to a marathon. People that can run it in 2.5 hours are going to run it in 2.5 hours, and people that need the full 8 hours will take it, and each can achieve in their own lane. So I think that's important. And then I really think we need to look at the access point to participating in sports or other extracurricular activities, and no longer be it about a standardized test score, which the NCAA is starting to eliminate, which is a big thing for racial equity and that piece of things. And we know that will also apply to students that are dealing with learning challenges. So that's a really big piece. And then I think we can eliminate the GPA requirements as well. I think education is an important piece, don't get me wrong, but if a student is going to class, showing that they're actively participating and demonstrating knowledge in their own way about the material, if they're hitting those boxes, that should be enough for them to be able to participate in their sport or any extracurricular activity that the school is providing.
And we've talked about that a lot. Our students, especially in like the high school sports around our area, they have to turn in their homework or their grade report to participate in the game, on Mondays and Fridays. And if they don't, they're not allowed to play. So you have a student with dyslexia who maybe needs that extra time and those accommodations. And they're not getting the accommodations, and they're the star player of the team, and they're not able to play because maybe their accommodation of having extra time on a test wasn't given and they didn't do well on their test. And just how awful that is. Like if you're not giving the accommodations or giving the things the kids need, then you're going to penalize them again when it comes to the thing that they're really good at. And that's keeping them in school, keeping them motivated to work hard. I just see that a lot of anxiety and depression, and how many kids might drop out of sports because of it.
Yeah, as you were talking, I could just feel the pain of that scenario, and it's similar to like having a student sit in recess because they couldn't get their assignment done before the bell, and it's kind of counterintuitive to what needs to happen. If that student goes out to recess, they refresh, they get energy. We know that there's science behind that. Their sport is a very similar playing field. If they're able to participate in the sport, that can increase their motivation, that can relieve their stress, their anxiety, change their mood. To now, if they when they go back to the classroom or they go back to their homework assignment, now they have energy to actually accomplish those things. So if we're holding them out, not only are they not able to be in an environment where they can showcase their strength and their talent and build confidence, we're just hurting them again. And
Yeah, like we've already hurt them, like we've already not provided the
yeah,
right reading instruction. We're not providing the accommodations, and then we're going to all of a sudden now make this expectation also, and they just can't reach it
yeah.
without that help.
So yeah, I'm with you 1000%. And I look at putting this all together, and I wrote a book called Running the Distance, and it tells the story of how dyslexia helped me run the World Marathon Challenge, which is 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents. And I share my story as a way for others who might be going through similar things to connect and know that there's somebody else out there that is dealing with the challenge, but also as a way to help educators and parents maybe get a little bit more insight in what it's like to be a student with dyslexia and what the processes of going through that are. So really just trying to shed more light on this and bring more awareness. And all the sale proceeds from this book go back to the International Dyslexia Association as a fundraiser. So that's something that we're also doing. And the book is available on Shop IDA as well as Amazon now.
And the book is also an audio, right?
Yeah, we do
So,
have audio, and actually the audio is on Google Play, and all those sale proceeds go back to the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch. So that's something cool we were able to do on a local level.
so our student empowerment group was really, this really kind of amazed them that somebody with dyslexia wrote a book and took up the challenge. So it's just very motivating. And most of them have listened to your story. A couple of them have read the story, but just having those, just somebody that's been through it, and it's just kind of inspiring. And then all of that you've accomplished, I think also just makes it amazing.
Well, yeah, I think it really, I'm really feel fortunate with my family background and the family support, as well as educators along the way, that it wouldn't happen with that community. So, and I also recognize that not every student is given that opportunity, and that shouldn't be the reason that they're not successful. So I think that's why I have such a responsibility to give back to this community and find ways to connect with these students and the educational field in order to shed more light on it.
Thank you for sharing your story. And we want to tell people how to get connected with you if they want more information.
Yeah, please feel free to reach out if there's questions or ways we can support. You can always reach us at the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch. You go to my personal website, jaredsblank.com, and then the links on the left, Jared S. Blank at Running the Distance book, and Facebook and Twitter are also ways to connect.
And Jared, do you want to talk really quickly about your Instagram Live every Monday? It really helps motivate parents, educators, teachers, really audience for everybody.
Yes, Shelby. So we have an IG Live where we interview professionals in the dyslexia space, as well as parents and students, just to share information, another way to build awareness. And that is Mondays, 7 p.m. Pacific time. So you can tune into those at Jared S. Blank, and you'll be able to find the videos there. We also have recordings of prior interviews on our YouTube channel at the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch. We also have a professional dyslexia network that meets the first Tuesday of every month. Working professionals with dyslexia come into the space, share their experiences. So it's a great way to meet people and network, and you can find that on our website as well. I just want to say thank you to Shelby. Shelby's an instrumental part of the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch. She runs our student panel as well as a number of other projects. So we're just very thankful for Shelby and thankful for you all for taking the time to listen to this presentation.